I don't know about you, but one of my guilty pleasures is always asking other homeschool moms what curriculum they use. Even if I'm totally happy with the curriculum that I'm using, I always like to know what other people are using and if they like it, if they'd buy it again, and if they'd recommend it to somebody else. So I figured I can't be the only one who's interested in knowing, so I'm going to share with you the curriculum that we use. So I have 4 kids, 15, 13, 11, and 10. 10th grade, 8th grade, 6th grade, and 4th grade. So we start our day off. If you haven't already seen the video of what a day of our life looks like, you can check that out here. But we start our day off working all together and doing some of our curriculum items together. So we start off with doing history and science together. Now for history, we use Compass Classroom, and I love Compass Classroom. I love it. Love, love, love it. So we use the Dave Raymond's history program. Now it is a high school curriculum, but all 4 of my kids do it. Now they do it because it's a short lecture that's about 7 to 15 minutes, followed by reading an original document. So I like it because it's from a Christian worldview. I like it because he talks about the choices that people made during that time and why they made those decisions. Like what influenced the decisions that they made and the way that they chose to act the way that they did. They take notes during the lectures, and then each week they're supposed to put together like a history portfolio. It's like a summary of the things that they did or that they talked about for that week. And they're encouraged to make their portfolio pages their own and unique. So these are a couple examples that my daughter has done. And so it's people that they've talked about. It's whatever was talked about that week, whatever the topic for the videos that week was, and then they're supposed to make it their own. So that's what we do for history. If you would like to check out their curriculum, just a heads up, they have some really great sales throughout the year. And I always post about their sales because I, again, love them so much. So if you don't already follow us on Instagram and Facebook, you can do so. And I'll let you know when those sales come up because I can't recommend them enough. All right, so we do history together and we do science together. For science, I'm a little bit of a hodgepodge. I don't like to just pick one curriculum and stick to it. I've heard of some great science curriculums, and you can check that video out here, and it talks about some great science curriculum options. But I like to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So we started off the year, we did marine biology before we went sailing, and then once we went sailing, we kind of revisited what we did for marine biology because I wanted to recap, and being that we were on the ocean, we were able to more study in depth the things that we learned about in marine biology. When we came home, we started on geology and we started working on our geology unit. Both of those were through The Good and the Beautiful. I really do like them. I don't feel like they are the greatest, but I use them because they're easy to teach, they're well organized, and if I want to dive deeper in, I feel like it's a good backbone and I can dive deeper in. They are very beautiful when they have their books that correlate with them and things like that. My kids take notes during their science. So like here's an example from geology. One of my kids did the volcano. So instead of doing the worksheets that is included, we usually do notebooking to go along with it. So that's what we do together. It's Compass Classroom for history, Good and the Beautiful for science. The second semester of science, we are doing the Mark Rober engineering class, which if you're not familiar with him, he is a YouTuber and he is such a great person. He's a kid at heart with a mind of curiosity, and he just has such a great, fun way of teaching that helps kids to appreciate science in something that relates more to them and what things that they're curious about. So, for example, during COVID, he did videos every week that did science classes, or a couple of videos a week on science courses that he just like threw together with fun questions like what happens if we flush all the toilets in the world at one time? So it's really fun. So he's put together a engineering course and we're doing that for second semester. So far it's been really fun. We have not stayed on track with the course because we only work 4 to 5 days a week and it's meant to be done 7 days. But that's okay. Once you pay for the course, you can do it at your own pace. If we don't keep up with the group, it works out. So we're okay with that. We are really enjoying it and it's introducing my kids to things that they have not previously been introduced to. One thing that I wish I would have done better was to introduce more STEM projects early on in their education, and I didn't do that. But if you are looking for a science curriculum, check out my video here. I talk all about different science curriculums and things that I do suggest or wish I would have done or have tried and really liked and wish I would have stuck with. So, or done at a different time in my life. So check that out. All right, so after we do those things together, it's usually about lunchtime and everyone eats, and then we split up. Now, if you're interested in only one child, I'll time stamp down below what time I'm talking about each child. But first off, we have my 10-year-old. So she's in 4th grade. For English, she does The Good and the Beautiful, and she, let me find her book here. She is tested into, I think, The Good and the Beautiful level 2, level 3, and you're like, oh, what? Level 2? Level 3? What? My daughter does not have a learning disability, but she just was a super reluctant reader, and so she didn't want to read, and so she just started off behind. She did kindergarten next year, skipped 2 grades, and now she's doing the 2nd grade. And I would assume that she is going to probably test into 4th or 5th grade next year. So at the end of the year, they take their tests and it assesses them into what level they're in. If you are curious about The Good and the Beautiful, I will link a video here that talks more about The Good and the Beautiful specifically. But for my daughter in particular, it's worked really well for her. It works well because she is able to work at her level for reading and learning the phonic rules and grammar rules, but she's also able to work on other things because they're so bite-sized pieces that we have been doing The Good and the Beautiful and also been incorporating in IEW writing lessons, which if you're not familiar with IEW, it's the Institute for Excellence of Writing. So after Christmas time, we kind of fall into like I call them the doldrums. It's like where you have a hard time getting started. So one of the things I like to do is introduce a different program for a little bit that's different than what they've been doing. So it's not like picking up and just continuing on doing the same thing they've been doing before Christmas. It gives them something different to do and kind of gets them started. So we did a 6-week IEW writing course, and it worked really well to get them jump-started. We did not complete the program, and I'm okay with that because we're going to come back to it. It's one that I cycle back to, but it is not available, so I'm reluctant to tell you because it's the IEW geography books that uses the Holling, Clancy, Holling books, and you can't find it, and I'm sorry. It's really frustrating. I had to buy it off of eBay. But if you have a friend that has it, I recommend buying it or borrowing it, because it is a really beautiful writing curriculum. But any of their writing curriculums are really great, and they tie in wonderfully with history, which is one of the reasons why I love The Good and the Beautiful, because it ties in history, poetry, geography, plus their writing, plus their reading, and it has their companion readers that go with it. So I'm a big fan of The Good and the Beautiful, and especially for their high school. Okay, but we'll get to that. Okay, so she does that for English, and then for math, both of my kiddos have been doing Life of Fred, and I was introduced to Life of Fred when my kids were much younger, when my oldest daughter was younger, and this is one where I wish I would have stuck with it. I think she would love math or would have loved math a lot sooner, but I was introduced to it and I read through it and I thought, this is way too fun and this is way too easy to be considered good math. There's no way my kids are going to learn with this. And I was so wrong. I was so wrong. It's such a fantastic math program, and it's one that my kids do one chapter a day. So this is the liver book, and they go in alphabetical order, like apples, butterflies, cats, dogs, and they're up to liver, and then my son is on Minecraft. They've just worked their way all the way up. And I started where they tested, which you can check the website. I'll link that below. They started where they tested at, and then they do one chapter a day. And by the end of the year, they will have completed all of the alphabetical series books, which if you look, this is an intermediate series. So they're learning things in this book that is introductory concepts to calculus and trigonometry and graphing and physics, but they don't realize that that's what they're learning because it's so fun. And they don't really know how to use it as a physics equation, but you can talk to them about the equation and how it applies in the story and how they could use it in the real world, and they get it. Like, they get how it applies. So if you have a child who's really struggling in math, I cannot suggest this series enough. It's been so fun. And the reason I actually started it was not because my kids were behind in math. Actually, I started it because they were so far ahead in math. They were 2 years ahead in math that I wanted to take a break and kind of just let them practice the things that they've already learned and let them kind of almost have an easy year of repetition and an easy year of review. And this has been so much more than I expected to be. So once they finish these books, then we're going to move on to, there's a percentages and decimals, and then they'll move on to the algebra book, and they can just keep moving up through the math ranks. And so I'm really excited to see how the understanding of math really grows as they read each book, because it's not only helped them to review the concepts that they did already know and to better help them understand it, but it's also helped to prepare them so much better for the levels of math that are to come. So Life of Fred, highly suggest. Both my 4th grader and 6th grader are using it. So, okay, so that's all for my 4th grader, right? She does Good and the Beautiful for English, Life of Fred for math. My 6th grader also does Good and the Beautiful English, and his is more independent. So my younger daughter, hers, they're supposed to do sometime with a parent and sometime with on their own, but he is fully independent. And I believe they're fully independent by level 4 is when they are independent. It's either 4 or it's 5, which this is 5. So he is level 5, and he has not only his workbook, but he has his course companion that goes into it as well. And his course companion has poetry and sentence dictation and spelling ladders. And it also has a quick reference into different rules and things like that. So I really love The Good and the Beautiful. It ties in, again, poetry, geography, history. It ties in grammar. It ties in reading. It ties in writing. It's really a great, great curriculum. So Good and the Beautiful for my 6th grader, and still Life of Fred for my 6th grader as well. Next up is my 8th grader. She uses, guess what? Good and the Beautiful. So she uses the Good and the Beautiful for her English. She really, really likes it. She likes it that it's broken down into bite-sized pieces. She is my workhorse. She is my one who will just keep going and keep going. And actually, she loves the Good and the Beautiful because it's broken up into lessons, because once she's done with her lesson, she mentally can be like, okay, check, I'm done with that. I can move on. Otherwise, she would just keep going and keep going, keep going, keep going, which has me a little concerned when she gets into high school. You'll see why when I get to that. But here's her Good and the Beautiful. Again, we're talking about artist Benjamin West. She she reads about artists. She reads about history. She reads about geography. It just ties in so many different courses, right? Like topics together that I just love it. Love it, love it, love it. And then they come with a reader. So with my son, we read parts of the book together. Like we trade off. You read a page, I read a page, you read a page, I read a page. And then with my younger daughter, my 10-year-old, on her reader, she is supposed to read with me. So it's to whatever her level is. And then my eighth grader, hers is independent, but there are some stories that it says to read with an adult. So it tells you to sit and trade off reading with an adult. So that's really nice that she comes back to me for help. I like that. Okay, and then for math for her, she's with teaching textbooks. Now, if you've seen my previous video here, you know that my kids have all done teaching textbooks, but she particularly wanted to stick with it. She really likes teaching textbooks. So I had no objections to it. She's going to continue using teaching textbooks through the year and then possibly stick with it. So history we covered for her, and science we covered for her. And she also uses Duolingo for Italian. She spends some time working on Duolingo, about 30 minutes to an hour a day. She works on her Italian. In addition to using the Duolingo app on her phone, she also takes copious notes, so that way she can create flashcards for herself and practice sentences and pronunciation, things like that. And she seeks out people who speak Italian. So she meets somebody on the street who speaks Italian. She will go up to them and say, "Hi, my name is Mia and I'm learning Italian, and would you practice some things with me?" Or she'll say, "I'm wondering about a word. Can you pronunciate that with me or tell me how it's pronounced?" And so anyways, pretty cool. It's a great opportunity that she takes to talk to people, but that doesn't happen very often. So she's got her history, her science, her English, her math, her language studies, and I think that's it. I think we got everything. Okay, and then for Ella, she is in 10th grade. She again does history and science with everybody. And for English, she does The Good and the Beautiful. But The Good and the Beautiful high school is different. It is broken up into units. So these are her last units. She has 8, 9, and 10, but there's 10 units total for the year. And the booklets, there's assigned reading books that go with it. Again, it covers history, geography, art, poetry. One thing that I really love, and if you want to hear like the full in-depth explanation of the high school Good and the Beautiful, check it out right here. But basically what I love is that everything ties in together. It's more in depth than the previous versions, and it's like they have to dive in deeper to geography and history and poetry, and it all ties in together. You're reading about the poet, you're reading about their poetry, and then you're diagramming sentences from their poetry, and you're digging deeper into where that poet grew up and the geography of that area and what was going on during their lifetime that influenced their poetry. And it's just, I love it. 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 And she's pretty much 100% independent. The only time she comes to me is when she turns in her workbook. I go through the answer key and make sure everything's good. And I also edit all of her papers. So if she has to write a paper, she writes it, she brings it to me, I edit it, I give it back to her, she makes the edits, and then she turns in her final draft with the unit book. When I make edits, I like to sit and edit with my children so that they can see what changes I'm making, and we can talk about why we're making those changes, and they have a better understanding as to why we're making the edits that we are. So she does that. She also does Duolingo for Spanish, and she has a Spanish textbook from a Spanish 1 course that she took, that the class went halfway through the textbook, and she's doing the other half of the textbook for Spanish as well. And she, like the other kids, all have to do PE. So PE sometimes is a bike ride, sometimes it's swimming in the pool. They do seasonal sports, so swimming or basketball. So whatever they're doing at that time works as their PE, physical education. So one thing that we use a lot in all of our units are these Strathmore visual journals, and we use the mixed media paper. This is what we used when we went sailing and we did our notebooking journals on the boat. It's what we use during history when the kids are taking notes and then they have to make their portfolio pages. It's also what we use when they're doing their science journaling for like the geology and so forth. So we use a lot of these. They have this big size, which is 9 by 12, and they also have a smaller size, which again is the one that we use like on the boat, or if we go backpacking, it's the one that they throw in their backpack just because it's easier to transport. But we use a lot of them, so we really like them. I'll link them down below so you can find them. I get them from a couple different places depending on who has them on sale, so I'll link each of those below for you. So that's what we use. I hope it was helpful to answer the ultimate question, right? What are we going to use next year? I'm going to make a full video of that right here, but yeah, some of it's hit and miss. So definitely our history, like definitely we're going to be using our history next year. That's the big winner. And then science, like I said, always changes, and so I'll link all of that in our upcoming video of what we're going to be doing and using next year. I hope this helps. I hope you feel a little more enlightened as to different options and empowered to make those choices for your kiddos. If I left you with any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. I make an effort to answer every single one of them. Take care.